All right. Good morning, family. Today we're talking about the Parashah Terumah, which means contributions, offerings, or gifts. All these words are used for Terumah within the Torah and the Tanakh itself. Today's specific reading is in Exodus 25. That's 25:1 through 27:19. The half Torah portion is 1 Kings 5:12 through 6:13. And today we're going to, instead of doing the traditional like Hebrews 9, 1 to 28, we're going to go for 2 Corinthians 9, 1 to 15, because I like its message about giving gifts from the heart is what God loves and God expects for us to do, not just because we have to or forced to, but every gift, every contribution should be one given from each individual's heart. So let's start with today. The message for this particular reading is two. One regards contributions from the heart, which is what we're doing at the beginning of 25, and we'll do again in 2 Corinthians. But the second is the dwelling place, the holy place of our God, our Creator. Um, Now, whether one wants to argue whether the actual tabernacle was an actual uh, tent, an actual thing that was made and created, or if it was written later, is insignificant. What's important is the story, the meaning behind it. And there's a German scholar by the name of Leonard Gopelt, a German scholar who wrote in his two-volume series called New Testament Theology about this portion of the tabernacle. What he says is that the tabernacle has been suggested that this is the plan of Yahweh or Yahweh's pattern, and that this may reflect a concept of a heavenly temple as the microcosm to which the tabernacle is the microcosm or microcosmic parallel. So the tabernacle is a representation here on earth of what the kingdom is for the spirit of Yehovah, his heavenly kingdom where he dwells. Um, and it says this is an idea that is also kind of reflected within the Psalms as well. So the tabernacle built for a concrete mindset. The Israelites had just come out of slavery in Egypt, are now dwelling in the desert. Um, they are surrounded. They just came out of Egypt, where there's great temples, there's idols, there's gods, all surrounding them, or other different cultures and religions that follow an idol, who have a house for the idol to dwell in. That perhaps it was needed for the people at the time to understand with their concrete mind that Yehovah is with them, that the God who rescued them, created them, is there in their presence. Due to the fact that just a concrete mindset couldn't understand the fact that, as Yeshua says in the fourth gospel, that Yehovah is spirit. We must worship him in spirit and truth. He's not a fleshly body. He's not an idol to be prayed to or dwelt to or worshipped. He is spirit. And that perhaps the mindset of the time just couldn't grasp that until later when Shua came along and we had a more abstract mindset in place of the concrete mindset, where we were able to understand these things and understand what the heavenly kingdom, the kingdom not of this world, meant. Um, so, as Yeshua represented the tabernacle on earth of Yehovah, this is the tabernacle for the Israelites in the desert until Solomon builds them a permanent temple in Jerusalem, which we'll get to in the next Torah portion. So let's just get started with this. Um, Yehovah starts in 25:1. He's speaking to Moses. Yehovah says, "Tell the sons of Israel to raise a contribution for me. From every man whose heart moves him, you shall raise my contribution." What's important and significant here is from every man whose heart moves him. This wasn't an obligation. He didn't say, "Rich, you're to give 20% of everything you own, and poor 1%." He didn't say tribes had to give different things in differing amounts. He said, for everyone whose heart moves him, you're to contribute to my contribution, the building of this sanctuary, this holy place for me to dwell amongst you. And that is played on later on. That's what's important to Yehovah is our giving, our gifts, our contributions, and they should be freely from the heart. They should be in a giving mood. So evidently, they had just plundered the Egyptians when they left, so they had plenty of this available. Uh, Other than some people discuss the acacia wood. Where'd that come from? To carry it? Do they get it locally? Whatever. Um, the desert, the wilderness at the time was a much different looking wilderness than it is today. Let's just understand that. Um, so he specifies to Moses, this is the contribution that they are to give to me, or to raise, that you are to raise from them: uh, gold, silver, bronze. So these precious metals are listed in the order of their value, of their rarity: gold, then silver, then bronze. Everything that he lists here is in the same way. Everything that's built, the closer it is to Yehovah, the more close to the presence it becomes, the more value, the more pure it has to be. Uh, Talks about the dyes here: blue, purple, and scarlet dyes. Very expensive dyes, especially the blue and the violet or the purple. Very expensive, from the way they were made. So this is in order that these things are built. The fine linen, when the Egyptians created this, they had a ability to make a very fine linen, woven together. So the Israelites had just come out of there, and many of them were probably producing this in mass amounts while they were in slavery in Egypt. So they had skilled workers that could do this. A lot of the skills they learned in Egypt, they were applying here in the building of the tabernacle. Um, so the after the fine linen, the purest, the rarest, the most value. Then we have goat hair. Then we have ram skins dyed red, and then finally porpoise skins. So the porpoise skins has been debated about what that actual Hebrew word means. Uh, Porpoise skins have been suggested. Some different kinds of sea creatures. As a matter of fact, I think the word that's been lost to us from antiquity is something like a sea creature, or some have suggested it's just an unused word from the Egyptians, meaning a very waterproof leather. Who knows? But this what the important part of that was: it's a waterproof covering that would cover the whole entire temple. Um, and then we have the acacia wood. Acacia wood is listed, but same thing, antiquity. What's for certain is that whether it's acacia or not, that was translated in the Septuagint, it was a rot resistant, a very rot resistant wood that's located. There's different species that have been considered or thought of, which maybe don't even exist today. We don't know. But it was a rot resistant wood. So here we use the acacia wood. Spices for or the oil for the lighting. So for the lamp that's to come up, that's to be shown to Moses to be constructed by the people, is made of the first press of the olive. That is the first oil that is pressed out of the olive. It comes out in the purest virgin oil. That was the purity that was to be used for the lights in the tabernacle. Also, spices for the anointing oil, and spices for the fragrance of the incense. Onyx stones and setting stones for the ephod and for the breastplate. It says, let them construct a sanctuary for me. Sanctuary in the Hebrew, that word is a holy place, a most holy place, means sanctuary. So they're to build the sanctuary of the holy place for the presence of Yehovah. And it says, let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them. According to all that I am going to show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern and all its furniture, just so you shall construct it. So the first you in these verses is meant to Moses. According to all that I am going to show you, Moses, uh, as the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furniture, just so you, the people, it's plural in the Hebrew, you shall construct it. So it's shown to Moses, and then Moses is going to have the people construct it. And then what comes up next is the first thing, the most holiest thing, the purest thing, is the what's called or translated we know as the Ark of the Covenant, which is actually a chest. The Hebrew word just means a chest. So imagine a chest about the size of a footlocker, an old army footlocker, about that size in cubits wide, cubits high, and cubits long. Um, the construction it gives, it says 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. But this chest is to be overlaid in pure gold. Again, we got gold. There's pure gold and there's gold, which might be mixed with some other metals to make it a little more harder. Pure gold is very malleable and soft. So those things of pure gold were the most purest and most expensive. So Ark of the Covenant is made of acacia wood, and then the acacia is overlaid with gold. And how that is particularly in place, thin sheets nailed to the inside is or outside is unknown. All we know is that it's pure gold overlay inside and out. And then later on, inside the chest itself will be the you shall put into the ark, the chest, the testimony which I shall give you. So the testimony here is uncertain specifically what the testimony means that Yahweh presents. The testimony could either be most likely as thought of as the actual tablets, the ten words given to Moses up on the two tablets of stone given to Moses that contain the 10 words or the 10 commandments. They're to be placed in there, and or the testimony um, that was given to Moses. Moses is told to write um, all this Torah, to write everything down, and so there could also be that testimony, those commandments, the Torah itself, placed within the box. Uncertain, but either way, it was important that this is pure gold. It is from Yehovah himself that is inside this chest. And then on the top is been translated as mercy seat, which is actually made of pure gold. This mercy seat, the Hebrew word comes from the same word as kaporim, which means atonement. It's like the atonement covering, and that's what it means on Yom Kippur is the atonement covering, to atone for your sins. So this is the atonement covering made of pure gold, um, that's to cover the ark or the chest itself. And then it talks about the cherubim that are placed on each side of it. The cherubim are of unknown what they exactly look like. There's a lot of speculation, but for certain, it wouldn't be something of idolatry. It wouldn't be something of a human form because we're not to worship the human form. But these were more of the guards, the messengers of Yehovah. The first mention of cherubim is in the Genesis when Adam and Eve are removed from the garden, set out the east gate are two cherubim, one on each side to protect the gate from anyone entering. And then you have the sword of fire that is to protect the tree of life. So those are cherubim that are talked about there. Then we have cherubim here on the lid, the covering, the atonement lid, the mercy seat, and then later on the cherubim that are embroidered into all the curtains and surrounding the veil and whatnot that are in here. So cherubim is kind of hard to determine what it is, but just know that they weren't for worship; they were for protection. Yehovah's, I guess, protective entities or messengers. Um, and then outside is the table of showbread. Gives the dimensions of the table of showbread, also covered in pure gold. Um, of note, the showbread and the chest, the Ark of the Covenant, also have poles made of acacia wood covered in pure gold. However, the Ark of the Testimony is those poles are never to be removed. Um, all the utensils of the table of showbread are made of pure gold, and the on the table of showbread table, Moses told you, your people, Moses shall set the bread of the presence on the table before me at all times. So there's always the table of showbread in Yahweh's presence, never to be removed. Um, Next is the golden lampstand. So within the holy place, the sanctuary, is the ark, the chest of the covenant. You have the table of showbread made of acacia wood and covered in pure gold, and all its utensils in pure gold. And then we have the golden lampstand. Says, then you shall make a lampstand of pure gold. Now, each one of these things is made in order. First of the ark, then you're going to make the table of showbread, then you're going to make the lampstand, then you're going to make the curtains. It says, then you shall make a lampstand of pure gold. It gives the dimensions of it. It talks about the bulbs and the flowers shall be of one piece. So this is one piece, not like joined together. This is one molded, hammered piece of pure gold, one stem up, and then three branches from each side to create the seven candles. Um, their bulbs and branches shall be of one piece with it. All of it shall be one piece of hammered work of pure gold. And then all of its utensils for it also, all the snuffers and lighters that go with it, are to be made of pure gold. And they're all to be made exactly to the pattern which was shown to him on the mountain from Jehovah. Uh, then we have the curtains of linen, pure linen, of the dyed material, pure linen, woven material, blue, purple, and scarlet. But within these, the dimensions that are given here for these curtains are embroidered cherubim. So, throughout that, or one isn't exactly known, that each of the curtains will have cherubim embroidered with them, made from a skilled workman or skilled weaver. Um, then it talks about the loops of blue on the edge of the outermost of the curtains, and these are intended to loop together with these 50 loops are to be joined together with clasps of pure gold. Actually, here it says, "You shall make 50 clasps of gold," not pure gold. The first time that pure gold isn't mentioned, it's just gold, and they're to be joined together so the tabernacle will be a unit. The walls will be a unit. Then it talks about the actual tent, the covering, as we know, is the tabernacle portion. The first layer, the innermost layer, is of woven goat hair, so it covers the top of it and down the sides, woven goat hair. Suspected that possibly that's to help insulation, to keep it like warm, keep the heat out in the summer, keep it warmer in the wintertime. Then the next layer will be of the dyed red ram skins. So you have the goat hair layer, then you have a layer of dyed ram skins, and then finally on the outside is the waterproof leather skin material, which is there to prevent water from penetrating and getting into the tabernacle, the mercy seat, the showbread, and whatnot. Um, Complete, waterproof. Then the outside of the boards and sockets are made. Gives the dimensions on the boards and the sockets. It talks about the tenons for each boarded, fitted to one together, or one. That's how the tenons are to lock them together. Talks about the sockets that lock them together. Here, these boards are made of silver instead of gold. It's the first time that silver is brought in. And then talk about the other side. Their sockets are made of silver, and it talks about the sides and the rear specifics on that. And there shall be 8 boards with the sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets on the other. Then it talks about bars of acacia wood, the 5 bars for the boards on the side, which are, I guess, the top of them. You shall overlay the boards with gold and make their rings of gold as holders for the bars. So again, all the boards on the outside, the acacia wood there, is covered in gold, not pure gold. Then you shall make a veil, a screen to separate from the holy and the holy of holies, right, where Jehovah will come down in the mercy seat above the mercy seat on the ark and talk with Moses there. That's where the veil is to be constructed. Um, you shall make the veil of blue and purple and scarlet material of fine twisted linen. It shall be made with cherubim, the work of a skillful workman. And then it talks about hanging the veil from 4 pillars of acacia wood overlaid with gold, just regular gold, not pure gold. Their hooks also being of gold on 4 sockets of silver. So here we got gold and mixed with silver sockets. Um, then once they get that constructed, you're to bring in the Ark of the Testimony there within the veil. So the Ark wasn't even brought in until after the veil was made, so they could bring it in and separate it from the Holy of Holies and the Holy. Um, and then the doorway of the tabernacle itself is to be made from a screen similar. It's the same material as the veil. It talks about the 5 pillars of acacia wood to hold them, and then their hooks are also made of gold, and the sockets are made of here in this case, instead of silver, these sockets are made of bronze. And then it talks on the outside. So that was everything on the inside is pure gold, and then gold and silver, and then silver and bronze. And then that's inside the tabernacle itself. On the outside, the first thing is to be built is the bronze altar. So the specifics are given for the altar, which is to be made of acacia wood. The dimensions are given. Talks about the horns on all 4 corners. So make and overlay this wooden structure, this hollow wooden structure, with of pure bronze, or of bronze. And it says, making the pails for the ashes, the shovels, the basins, the forks, the fire pans, all the utensils are of bronze. So this is outside the actual holy place. The sanctuary is the altar, and the altar is made of acacia wood overlaid with bronze. And then all the utensils and everything are made of pure bronze. Um, you shall make poles for the altar, poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with bronze. Poles are being inserted into the rings, so the poles shall be on two sides, um, just as it was shown to you on the mountain. So they, the skilled craftsmen, shall make it. And then it talks about the court of the tabernacle. So now we got the the sanctuary itself covered with the tabernacle, the tent, and then we have the bronze altar, and now we're going to make the exterior, the court walls. And it talks about the court walls being fine twisted linen, 100 cubits long for one side, and talks about the pillars, the 20 sockets of bronze, the hooks and pillars of their bands shall be of silver. So we're outside the border is made of fine twisted linen again, but it's connected with bronze and silver. It talks about the size of them. The hooks of the pillars and the bands shall be of silver. For the gate of the court, there shall be a screen of 20 cubits of blue, purple, and red scarlet material of fine twisted linen, the work of a weaver again. Um, and it just talks about the hooks of the silver and sockets of bronze. And then it ends up with, you shall charge, or the length of the court shall be 100 cubits wide, 50. So this was, they approximate about 8 feet tall, is what they're approximating the height of this, so that it's tall enough, about the average height of a ceiling in the United States, about 8 feet. So it's tall enough that you couldn't peer over, look over the top of it. And if you had the tabernacle itself on a little bit of a higher elevation, higher piece of ground, people around on the outside couldn't see what was going on the inside. It's important, for keeping the sanctuary holy and not just a common place where people can just look over and see. It's a holy place of the spirit of Yehovah to dwell among the people in the desert. So that ends our portion of the Torah portion. Let's go over to Kings and read about Solomon given the wisdom to build the uh, permanent uh, structure, the permanent temple, whereas Moses was given shown specifics by God, whether it was like in a 3D form pattern, whether it was a vision, whether it was an actual like architect plans. We don't know. We just know the pattern was shown to you on the mountain. So specific from Yehovah to Moses, this is how you built it. Here it starts off with the Lord gave wisdom to Solomon. So there's no mention of specifics as I've shown you or whatnot. Just he's given him wisdom. So it's almost as if Solomon's allowed to use his own discernment on what to build, or Yehovah is giving him the wisdom, through his mind to build exactly as Yahweh is designed or is showing him to do it, guiding him to do it. It talks about the forced laborers. So he forced laborers of 30,000 men working 10,000 at a time for a month, and then the next 10,000 will go up for the next. So they were on for a month and off for 2 months. But these were forced laborers. So it's assumed that since it's against the Torah for a Hebrew, an Israelite, to be a forced laborer, a slave, then these were Canaanites, people of the surrounding uh, peoples that Solomon had conquered, drawn in and made to be forced laborers to go and do the work for him up in Lebanon. And then outside was where the transporters, the hewers of stone, the actual workers were believed to be like conscripts or basically contractors. They were paid workers to go out and work to cut the stones and the wood, and it was almost like it was a prefab building out in the quarry, because it was against, it says later on, not a tool. There was neither hammer nor axe nor any iron tool heard in the house while it was being built. So everything had to be exactly built correct out at the quarry, outside the city of Jerusalem, and then brought in and assembled. So these were all Israelites that were out there working on it. Uh, it says he quarried great stones, costly stones, again, valuable stones, to lay the foundation of the house with cut stones. Um, so these were Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders, and the Gebalites cut them and prepared the timbers and the stones to build the house outside the city of Jerusalem. Um, and then the building of the temple itself is started in 6:1. but there's a specific number here given 480th year after the sons of Israel came out of the land of Egypt in the fourth year of Solomon's reign over Israel. He began to build the house of Jehovah. As for the house which King Solomon built for Jehovah, the length was 60 cubits, and its width 20 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. So it is taller in height than it is longer. 30 cubits is enormous. It's like 3 stories high. I mean, it's way more. 30 cubits is a very tall structure. Um, but the year is 480th year after the sons of Israel came out of the land of Egypt. It's assumed that that's 12 generations. Each generation is about a 40-year generation. 12 generations later, they came out and began building the temple in Jerusalem. Um, but importantly, Yehovah tells Solomon, saying, concerning this house which you are building, if you will walk in my statutes and execute my ordinances and keep all my commandments by walking in them, then I will carry out my word with you, which I spoke to David your father. I, Yehovah, I will dwell among the sons of Israel and will not forsake my people, Israel. But as we know, no one is able to completely fulfill the commandments of Yehovah. We're human. And that's the fault of us as being human, that even though it seems simple enough to obey everything that's put out by Yehovah, by our Creator, why couldn't the Israelites do it? That's why it was taken from them. Why couldn't the Catholics do it? Why can't the Protestants do it? Why can't the evangelicals do it? Because it's impossible. But it's important that we try, and we try with everything we can to follow Jehovah's commandments, so He will dwell with us, dwell within our bodies, and be with us for all time. So let's wrap this up by going to the final portion, um, 2 Corinthians 9, uh, 9:1 to 9:15. So here he's talking to the Corinthians. He's traveled from Macedonia, coming back to the Corinthians. He's already sent teachers and sent the brothers ahead to prepare them for the Macedonians. Which, hey man, the Macedonians have been doing good. You guys are a little bit shaky on your ability to give and to fulfill. Look at the first letter I sent you. So what this is titled is God Gives Most. Um, so Paul is telling the Corinthians that I have sent the brethren so that, as I was saying to you, you may be prepared. Otherwise, when they come and you're not prepared, it's going to be embarrassing to you, to me, and everybody. So I sent them ahead. I thought it necessary to urge the brethren that they would go ahead to you and arrange beforehand your previously promised bountiful gift. So here, they not words, actions, right? You promised, you said you were going to give a bountiful gift. Well, they're being sent ahead of you to fulfill this gift before I arrive with the Macedonians. Um, says, now that I say to you, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one, each one must do just as he has purposed in his heart, not begrudgingly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So again, this is saying you must do as he has purposed in his heart. The same thing that Yehovah told Moses to do when he said, gather from them a contribution for me, as each one's heart moves him to do so. This is the same he's telling them. Not begrudgingly, or not grudgingly like you have to do it or you're forced to do it, but because you're um, a cheerful giver. You're willing to give. If you're doing well, give to others who aren't doing well. But if you're doing well, or even if you're not doing well, give something of yours to show God that you are a cheerful giver and that you are supporting Yehovah, be it building the tabernacle, the temple, or just helping the poor, the brothers, the widows, the orphans, the imprisoned, the sick. Uh, Giving to others is what gives back to us. Um, says God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance of every good deed. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for the food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest for your righteousness. Unfortunately, there's a uh, uh, teaching out there, a sect of Christianity that believes um, in prosperity, the prosperity gospel. And a lot of it's taken from this. It's like, hey, the more you give to me, the church leader, the more God's going to bless you and money in return and whatnot. It's bad teaching, but again, you can take words out of Scripture and twist it to whatever you want, but that's not what's proper. This is the ministry of this service is not only fully supplying the needs of the saints, the holy ones, but is also overflowing through many thanksgivings to God. Um, While they also, by prayer on your behalf, they also yearn for you because of the surpassing grace of God in you. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. Again, the gift that God gives freely is what we're to example, and that gift is grace, mercy, forgiveness. That's the gift to us from God. He didn't have to, he's not compelled to do it or forced to do it. He does it freely, and we should return our gifts freely to him and to his children, which is all of humanity. So, lesson to be learned here: those who give of their heart, for God loves a cheerful giver. It's important that you're uh, supporting your congregation, you're supporting your homeless, your widows, the poor, the family. Giving to God is how we show our love and charity for God Himself. So that wraps up our portion for this week's Torah portion. I encourage you to read next week's Torah portion and be prepared um, to give that. Um, Next week is Tetzaveh, you shall command. It's Exodus 27:20 through 30:10. The Haftorah is Ezekiel 43:10 to 27, and either Hebrews 13 or Philippians 4:10 to 17. Those will be what we're talking about next.